Yeah, I think it points right at me.
You're way off.
I think we're recording.
Yeah, that's kind of the nice part.
Yeah. Okay, so I'd like to call this meeting to order. It is Wednesday, June 30th at 4:02. And our first thing on the budget is the budget update from Ms. Angela.
Yes, so what I gave you today is a packet of just information, kind of, nothing is official, that's why I didn't provide like an official attachment, because a lot of this is all speculative at this point. You know, there's a lot more information that we don't know than we do know, I guess, as far as funding is concerned. So timelines that you want to know about. Big things will start tomorrow. We get our initial estimate of aid, okay? And so since we are positively aided district, you know, a big thing for us is that the more we spend, the more we're aided on. Okay, so that's a big thing. So, for example, we did the budget amendments last week, and we have those sort of approved and published in the paper, that kind of stuff. And we've gone through those steps. We have to update them on DPI. And so right now, if you were to look on DPI, there are no changes compared to what we initially registered for spending. So, but we'll update that, aid gets adjusted. And then by the end of, trying to think of it, the initial aid will show like an initial land value, but that usually comes out by the end of July, where we have at least an estimate, okay? But if you would turn to what is after the scenarios, it's the sheet that looks like this. This is the equalization aid. So it would be the 5th page in here. You know, we will not go over this in detail because it's very, very elaborate, and it talks about your primary, secondary, and tertiary levels of aid, okay? And so we're aided, if you see up at the top in the box, there's a K-12, there's a tertiary, primary, secondary, tertiary. We do not exceed the 656, 434. Our value per member is 482, which is kind of just below that right here. So we are, that means we're positively aided at the tertiary level, which is a good thing. So, you know, if we were negatively aided, we would want to be careful because everything more that we would spend would work against us. So, and we would lose aid based on that. So, a lot of information comes in here, and they summarize like the spending of the district and the receipts from the previous years, the enrollment data, and then, you know, I guess on the second column on the right, they have your equalized property value. So here, and this is the one that was certified for October 15th of the previous year. So this has nothing to do with this year, it has everything to do with the last year. But if you'd ever look this up on the internet, under the equalization aid, like the estimates will be out tomorrow, and the property value, they'll show that on there, but that is still not certified yet. At first, it's always certified on October 15th. So that's always why districts will wait to have their annual meetings as close to the end of October as possible, because we don't get this information until that point. So that's really one of the most critical pieces. We'll have our hearing before October 15th. That's what the district has done in the past, but it's always like the final budget with the final, you know, aid allocation would come just after the 15th of October. So, and so it's like that special meeting in October is really, really important for the final approving of the budget and then the tax levy certification. So, you know, it's all very, you know, very sort of calculated time-wise and very consistent. So it's the same for all districts. So some districts will do an initial annual meeting. We don't have to do like a formal annual meeting. We just have to do what's called the budget hearing as early as July. And there's so much that's unknown and that changes. But, you know, that's the point when you do an annual meeting, that the community in those cases, that's not how our district is organized as a, you know, how we qualify as a district. We don't have to do the annual meeting. So we just do the budget hearing, and then the board votes on the budget to approve that. So yeah, I mean, it's really kind of interesting to see all of the pieces that go into that. But, you know, the main pieces, the property value, And then the aid, like the bottom box, the October 15th certification of general aid, that carries over to the revenue limit worksheet. So I just thought I'd share that with you if you'd ever want to go. When I do the intro for the board members, I won't even go into the tertiary aid and stuff. I mean, I can a little bit if people are interested, but it gets pretty, sometimes for the general overview, it gets a little deep, so.
That's with a B, right?
Huh?
These numbers are with a B, right? Am I reading that right, that number right? The property value is that in the billions?
Yeah. Billions, yeah.
Wow.
For all of our area. So that's where, even with, the property value, and I did different calculations here. I can tell you what I use in each of the scenarios with that. So yeah, it's just it's very, very interesting to see how it all comes together. So yeah. If you can go over to the first scenario, you can make sure this is recording. Double check. All of a sudden
$1 billion worth of property? Am I understanding that right?
In the school district.
Yeah.
No, not our school district, but everyone in the school district.
Oh, all school districts then?
It's all people in our school district, correct?
This is for all of our, so that is for all of the property that falls into the Manitowoc Public School District property boundaries for taxes, that pay taxes.
So like our homes. and
Property
everything.
values.
Property values, yeah.
Honestly, I'm
No,
looking at
sorry.
like the buildings and
Yeah.
like this
No.
is not $1 billion worth of property.
No.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay,
No,
thank you. I was like,
the whole,
what in
no,
the
I'm
world?
sorry, my bad. No, so that is the tip-out value for just all of the, property in our
Okay,
tax
okay.
district, so.
That makes more sense.
Yeah,
now to me.
no, I'm sorry, I misunderstood your question, so, and then the aid is at the bottom of that box, but then what I did here, and this is really nice, we use the Baird budget forecasting model, and this pulls in, we can do projections of enrollment. There, the unknowns that we have at this time are several things. So you see on this worksheet, each of the 4 scenarios that I put together, you have the historical, like 2 years, our current year, and then our budget year, what we're looking forward to. So I think that you're all aware biennial budget isn't approved yet. And so what I wanted to kind of capture in here is what we would have with a 0 increase per student. $39 is what was originally proposed. And then I think in Ever's original budget proposal was like $200 or $204 per student. So I just used 200 just to keep it round. So, when you look at the revenue limit worksheet there, it has these separate sections. And, part of what they use is like your prior 3 years. And then, so we know that information now. And then when you kind of go just above the first dark line, you have your maximum revenue per member by the current year average. That is really just a guesstimate right now. And we, estimated it with it going down just with declining enrollment. I think it was 1.19% they put it down. And that gives us our revenue limit exemption, because this is just with a 0, like no increase, just where we're at now. And it gives us our amount there of the 50 million. And then below that, what you have are and that's called the revenue limit with no exemptions. So it's just kind of like nothing fancy is added to it, is my best way to summarize that. And we have different items that we have in there, like hold harmless is like if we have for declining enrollment, that's one thing that gets put in there in that section. We have non-recurring referendum gets added to that section, and then private school voucher aid, like that gets added in there. So even though we expense out for the vouchers, we are able to increase our revenue limit that same amount. So our revenue limit with exemptions would be 57 million, and then they subtract your state aid. And that's just an estimated amount in here. So like your allowable limited revenue is the max that you can levy. So that's what this ends up being here at this point. So some districts, like I mentioned before, will levy for things like outside of the general fund, your non-referendum we have non-referendum debt service in here, but, so ours would include just the regular Fund 10, 41, and 38 levies. We don't have, like below that line, they have some other like referendum approved debt, which is, ours is operational referendum amounts, so that's not included here, that's above. And community services, we don't levy for any of those items traditionally here in Manitowoc. So it just talks about what, your school levy would be in total, because like if you use those other levies, it would be totaled and spread up across the value. So that levy divided by that estimated property value would put the mill rate down 2 cents in this scenario. So I won't go through in that much detail with the other ones, but if we were to receive, like in scenario 2, the only change that I have in here is the per pupil increase or decrease of $39. That would bring our mill rate up 1 cent in that case, so that's that's what the adjustment would be for that. And then in the next scenario, what I did is I did $200 above, and I did a 3% increase in property value, because what I was using was a 2% increase for these, and then the mill rate would stay the same. And then, this is with a 4% increase in the property value. And then scenario 4 would be with 3%, and that would be with their mill rate going up a little bit. It would be 6 cents. But, likely as we estimated when we went into the referendum, everything should work that our mill rate goes below the $7.81. But, a lot of things are dependent upon our enrollment too. That brings in, more aid if we get that. And so one thing goes up, one thing goes down. So I just thought it would be helpful to share this. Happy to take any questions on it. I mean, it's just, there's a lot that goes into it, so.
Yeah, I was curious, so I see that the non-recurring exemptions are added. One of those is energy efficiency. So I guess one, is that in the future projected to be having some line item there? Because I know we're looking at that return on the capital.
Yeah, and I know what you're saying with the
Okay.
synergistic, and that energy efficiency credit is a different program through the state. And honestly, I'd have to go back, and I'm happy to.
Okay, so that's the reason
Not
that's a
likely.
line item is for credits that are accrued from the state.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, and in other programs. And the history on that, I'm not 100% on. I know some districts have had that, and we do not have that. One thing we always receive is like computer aid each year, and that there are all these little things that go into that. If you like looking even more, because this is a simplified version, if you look at revenue limit worksheets, it's like a couple pages thick. So, and if you have a deep passion for this, I'm happy to show you even more. But, it's just one of those things too. We want to, the more aid we receive, the less we have to collect from taxpayers, and that's a very, very important thing. Tim Mathias, my original business manager that I worked with, he always talked about like a balloon. If you squeeze the balloon in one direction, it goes to the other, and then so we really want more to come from the state. And I think we're very fortunate as a district that we get a lot of the CARES and GEARS funding, so that some districts aren't as lucky in that respect. So, that helps us, helps us, kind of go with the times, especially if it doesn't come out favorably for us. So then we can just kind of move along with that. So, as a process, just in general, we are, back in May, budgets were due to Margot from all the budget holders. And, so what we are doing right now, on my computer, she has those entered. She's waiting on me to bring some things in. We did receive notice, 2 things, like our insurances will be increasing about $85,000. Our insurance agent said for school districts, it's in his 34 years, it's like the second worst year he's ever seen in his career. So for Manitowoc specifically, our experience mod is very high. And so Sean was already working on that before he left. And so but COVID kind of put a pause on that. So we are just looking forward to hitting the ground running, not literally for workers' comp, but and just working to bring that experience mod down. So several projects that we have like calling cards. So there's like a triage nurse that people work with, and that all is supposed to statistically proven to help bring the costs down. And then we'll do some other programs in districts. So mentioned printers, copiers last time. We finalized our contract with Wisconsin Document Imaging. We'll be able to save about $1,000 a month so far, and that'll come down. So we're working on stuff. So so that's nice to know more pieces all the time. So, any questions you guys have?
Oh my gosh. No. Looks like you have everything covered very, very good.
So, well, thank you. Well, let me know ever if you have any questions on here. And I just to point out, if you like to see it and you find it interesting, some people like this stuff. The last 2 pages are history of revenue limit. If you want to see sort of how it's changed over the years.
So it's really nice that you include that,
Oh,
the history. I really appreciate that. So, I guess I do have one question.
Yeah.
Do you know where the state is sitting right now? I know they said $39 per pupil. And so historically, we've gotten 175.
Yeah, so it was it was 175 2 years ago, 179 last year. So usually what they'll do as a part of the biennial budget is approve what the increase will be for each of the years. And there were some years where they didn't increase it at all. And so what's always interesting for Manitowoc is we're low spending. So we say that low spending, low revenue. Sometime I am happy to show you if you want to, but if you ever look on the revenue limit worksheets and stuff online, you'll see districts that have like $200, $400, $1,000, over $1,000 more per student that they bring in. It is substantial. So we were very conservative with our spending in the early 90s when that happened, which is a good thing. We were using our money wisely, but then we kind of got caught in the crossfire. Yep, and any district that was defined as low spending at the time has never been able to sort of make up the pace on it. So it's kind of just where it's at.
So there's 420 school districts in the state.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And we are ranked at 385.
Yeah, the low
of
10%.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
so we're like 385 in spending out of 420.
Mm-hmm.
And for the size of our district,
Yeah.
that's
I don't know if there are any,
It's
I
tough.
have to look, because when Mark and I were preparing stuff for just figures for the referendum, I don't know if there are any other districts larger than ours that are low spending.
there aren't.
There aren't.
There
Okay,
aren't.
I have to look.
I looked into it. I did the research on it. There aren't.
Okay.
For our size district, that's almost.
Mm-hmm. And you think about the 90s, 1993, 94, when they established that. You think of how much. I was in 6th or 7th grade at that time, or 7th or 8th, something like that. And you think of all of the explosion of technology, all computers. When I was in 7th grade, we were starting to use like computers for typing class, so it's one of those things where, that doesn't take into account the expansive needs of technology.
Right.
So we just keep having to
Right.
whittle away at things. So,
So we kind of got caught in that low spending rut and we can't get out of it. So
caught for being responsible,
Yeah.
it's just, what do and it's, that's just important to note. So sometimes what'll happen, and we'll just have to see with the state, they may move to increase that low, they could do something where they don't increase per pupil, but they increase the low spending threshold, so other people stay the same and then the gap is smaller. There's so many different things. So when you hear them talk about that on the news, that's what you're listening or, noting. So, our land value is going to be a huge impact, the funding from the state, and then our FTE, so that's a big thing.
So when we put forth, and I know you were 6th or 7th grade at the time, so not as a result of your things, but obviously you probably have some sort of insight to that. We do projection models and for the budget, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
Why was that not, knowing full well how it's, the dollars come in, why didn't they put that into their projection model as to, hey, is a sustainable practice or not a sustainable
Oh, at the
practice?
state level, you mean?
No,
or
I mean,
just-
even at the district level, if we were doing that, that we were going to have this practice put forth under these,
Like back in the 90s, you're saying?
yes.
I think really, and Ken Mishler would be a good person. He was the former business services director for years and years. You know, he was in when that came, very early in his career when that came into play. And I think, I don't know how much preparation, let's say, that they were given for that's how it was going to be used and calculated. You know, I think it was either something that came through quickly in legislation. I mean, I'm speculating here. I don't know for sure, but I think had any district known that that was how it was going to be controlled, I think, you know, people would have started spending money quick. I mean, you know.
And I don't, I'm very far from an advocate for just, you know, let's spend.
Of course, yes, yes.
And I commend the fact that they were looking to save cash, but at the same time, when you're doing budgeting, you should be looking at, you know, what you're doing and in the future, because that's the whole reason you're budgeting.
Yeah, and Ken did, you know, I assure you that they were looking at those types of things, but I think that, you know, where they would take a more conservative approach to save money and to like maybe, you know, lower the impact on taxes, you know, they did that, but then, you know, if he would have probably been, you know, the district would have been criticized if they were, you know, trying to increase it then at the time too. It's always kind of
Right. Well, I'm just saying is, was there, I mean, and part of the reason in me asking it was not necessarily of, you know, was there a plan that was in place that we're just not aware of in the reasoning that was done?
I could ask Ken. I mean, I'd be interested to know. I'll ask him and just say, hey, what was the environment? How much lead time? I'd be curious to know myself.
Yeah, 'cause maybe there was a plan that maybe we're not following, that, you know, hey, let's do this. I don't know, maybe.
Yeah, and right now, once that revenue limit came into play, there really wasn't any. They've talked about it probably since its inception, that it was not good. But there really hasn't been any way. What they've done a lot of times is they've increased, sometimes they'll increase what's called the categorical aid for students. So they'll say like, and it was outside of the revenue limit. So you'll hear that term a lot too. So when you have that kind of increase, then it's not impacted by this formula. And I think it was $742 per student for the last year. So we received about can I find it here quick? $3 million, I want to say, 3 something for that. Sorry, I don't have the exact amount. I just was seeing our revenues and I want to say it was in the 3 million range, but it was, you know, $742 per student. And so, you know, I guess to work around, you know, I think a lot of people understand that there are issues with the funding model, but I think there hasn't been an equitable solution. So, you know, you wouldn't want to, I mean, some districts are getting a lot of extra money. And so, you know, they don't want to lose that and we need more. And so it's just interesting to follow. I mean, with the surplus and then just a lot of information that comes into play. So.
Yeah, almost like having everybody be on the, equity doesn't work, almost, having everybody have the same amount is really kind of what's damaging here.
Well, I don't, that, I think to a large degree right now, it's not equitable, you know what I mean? Because it's just where they took it, where districts were at a snapshot in time, you know what I mean? So there are other things like our title funding and grant funding that will look at more like your free and reduced, your poverty level, and we'll do that, but there aren't really other, they weren't, at least to my understanding with how it was put together and how it's used today, they're trying to keep bringing up the districts, a little bit that are low spending like ours to keep it so how can I explain it? like, so we're like trying to keep up with the cost of living, so. Yeah, I'll definitely talk to Ken and I'll find a time to talk with him and say like, hey, what was the environment?
That would have been 1996 is when that all came into play.
Was it? Okay, I thought
And
it was
it was
19.
only supposed to be a temporary, from my understanding. It
Yes.
was only supposed to be a temporary, and then they were going to restructure it,
Mhm.
and it never was restructured. So we were caught in that.
Yeah, so here we are 25 years later, reaping the repercussions of
Sure.
a bad,
So we
you know, a
just,
seemingly bad equation anyway.
And a lot of times we'll talk about with federal funding for CARES, the conversation will be like, okay, you'll hear like in the political circles just about, you know, the fact that they have surplus and then they earmark it for things. But then they'll talk about how when you get another biennial budget, you have your legislators are all different. And then that original intent for the money goes away. So it's, I like the thought of the fact that, you know, once we have more answers, my budgeting, you know, or for the district will have more answers. I'll be able to give you more information far in advance next year. So, it's challenging to not know because we just all kind of sit and wait, you know, you know, the fiscal year starts next year, well, and we don't know.
Well, and imagine all those gears that are spinning at different times. You've got changes in the political seats, you've got changes in district seats, and everybody's trying to keep up, and yeah, it's kind of crazy, so.
Yeah, so that's, you know, I just, you know, wanted to bring that up and, you know, the goal is by the end of July, you know, we should have, you know, a draft of the budget ready because we'll have that information, we'll be able to provide that, we have the insurance figures, we have other figures that we can pop in there definitively, and that will give us a better outlook on things too, so. And, yeah, I mean, any other questions on that? So, okay, moving on to,
Yeah.
should I move on?
Well, you can go ahead. Let's move on to
Let's steal the
point
thunder,
3 with the
Kathy.
CARES and ESSER funds, that's all just fine.
No, for CARES
Should
and
be
ESSER
casual.
and years funding, I mean, CARES really is the umbrella. I mean, I kind of say, I'll say CARES and then people say CARES and ESSER as it's two separate things, but your ESSER and CARES falls under CARES. And then there's the ESSER 2 and ESSER 3. So Margot Wagner, very, very busy working on shifting things around. We have a lot of salary pieces that we're going to just the ESSER just to help, you know, just with the qualifying expenses that we use and with final payrolls done on that and final claims to settle that out. We've officially used all of our ESSER 1 money, and then with gears, and that was $834,000. MPSD's amount for that was $719,051, $719,051. And then for gears, we had $722,753. And all of that is used short of 95,000 right now. So, you know, I think all districts were, you know, heading into this last year, just trying to find ways to like utilize that funding based on what they were doing for safety practices, for, you know, anything from hand sanitizer, bell covers for musical instruments, additional staff we had to hire to just accommodate for spacing and coverages during lunches at the middle schools, for example. And so, you know, to organize this process with a lot of unknowns was very, very tricky. So that's why the management of just the funding, you know, we did a really good job of coming together and being organized with what we did. But the nice thing is moving ahead with ESSER 2 and ESSER 3, we have just more planning time invested into how we're using the funds, just because of, you know, now we're able to kind of look at what the needs are moving forward. So,
Angela, is there a breakdown of the monies we have used for the CARES funds and maybe projections for the future that the Budget and Finance Committee can look at?
we do have a plan, and we, you know, that we can share. You know, we have certain projects that we've identified that will help. You know, it's you have certain things like safety items, like sanitizer and keeping, continuing with those things. But then, the really tricky thing that they talk on a national level for all districts is you want to avoid what's called your spending cliff. So, we have to very carefully, consider what we spend money on, because you don't want to spend money on like a lot of extra staff and then you can't maintain them after 3 years and then you're laying people off. So, we've looked very carefully at, ways that we can spend that we can, help improve the achievement gap. That's the main thing. So that's where for ESSER 3, we have to identify that like these positions or these resources will go towards, helping the achievement gap. So like summer school, lots of districts increasing their summer school. We've tried to do that as well. So yeah, I can provide that in the future. That's, we can, share the information of what we have planned. And
Yeah, it kind of seems like a logical thing that the Budget and Finance Committee should have privy to, I guess, is like what the plans are, because we'll have to approve it eventually anyway, right?
yeah, it gets approved through like the spending, I guess, and stuff too. I mean, it's, how can I explain it? Just with the overall plans in general, there's so much that goes into that, so it's not, it's very deep into the weeds, I guess you can say, as far as just, yeah, I mean, we're happy to share it. A lot of times, we have to hire staff and stuff in advance and stuff and order materials and stuff. So, and kind of plan how that is structured, if that makes sense.
Sure.
So,
But as a board member, like if someone was out in the community asking me how we're using those dollars, and I were to say, especially being chair of the Budget and Finance Committee, or just
how are we
I
spending
have no
money, so-
idea that that's not really okay. So
Yeah,
we
oh
should
yeah.
have some sort of general information with that.
Yeah, like, definitely, we can share, information about what we've, claimed and what we, the plans are. That's not a problem. Expanded nursing, just off the top of my head, expanding nursing services, Chromebooks, the broadband hotspots, that kind of stuff is all. So, yeah.
Yeah, but to be able to list that out for us to some degree would be great.
Yeah, not a problem. So,
Appreciate it, thank you.
So you do have in the budget, you do have breakdowns of different things, and
Yeah.
how those money allocations are made.
yes, and then we, also plan to for how, in order to avoid that, the spending cliff is what they always call it, is the term, we had planned to do, like 25% 1 year, 50%, which is a carryover of the 25%, and then 25% in the final year, so that we're kind of structured and planned out. We're very planned out.
Good.
Yeah, and we've spent, the director team, we in Mark, we've spent a lot of quality time looking and talking about, what, is this going to improve student learning? Is this going to help, And then, tied into synergistic with ALC, we're working on automating our heating and cooling systems, and because they're only in some of the buildings so that they can control that. So, more of the ESSER 2 monies we're using towards more of the building projects. So it's, because there's several costs that we can put under that, which is, which definitely helps, there helps us make progress on some things that, that fit into CARES, and then also just our improvements we would have wanted to do eventually. So yeah, let me work on getting that information. I'm happy to provide that, because it is helpful. It helps for you guys to see that we have a plan, that we're not just willy-nilly.
And I don't doubt that you have one. It's just good to ask and see it. Like I said, if community members were to ask us, it's good to have a response and not say, I don't know, let me get back to you.
And
which
especially,
is a good response sometimes, but it just seems like, it would be a good thing to have. Since we're talking about it especially.
And then, I do have, just with the recertification too, I have to get information out to the parochial schools. Most of them have spent their ESSER 1 money, most of it, and then the years. And then for ESSER 2 and ESSER 3, there was no equitable sharing with the parochial schools. So there were other programs that they were able to take advantage of. So yeah. So that's that was, like we mentioned, a lot of work on our end, and, we do our due diligence to do our service to them as we're required. But it's definitely time consuming, so.
And now that can kind of end, right, now that the ESSER one is done?
Yes, I mean, once they
Okay.
spend up the rest of their money, they technically have until September of 2023, so we
Oh.
could have,
Voters come in.
my guess is that by next year, most of the schools will have most all of their spending complete. So, but they could stretch it out as long as they want, and then it would just carry through for the next year. So, yeah.
Okay, is that it for the CARES and ESSER dollars, or CARES dollars, I should just say? And then we're moving on to the textbook and professional development budget.
Yeah, no, I wanted, Kathy just mentioned and asked me, I just brought some figures along here too, and just looking real briefly today. As a part of, just for the general budget processes, I kind of reference sheets go out to the different budget managers. We, within the district, there are different specialists within each area. So, even though I have a unique background where I have a lot of experience in education, as the person who runs the budget, we trust the budget managers and work with them to develop budgets, and as we build a whole entire budget. So, in total, like for our textbook budgets, and just for the process for textbooks in general, I'm going to give you the figure, but I guess I wanted to share a little bit about the broader picture of it, because this would be an excellent question for the curriculum committee specifically, because they ultimately make those decisions.
That's part of why.
Huh?
I am on that too, though.
Oh,
That's part of why, yeah.
good. Yeah, and so they'll, what happens with a textbook adoption is a lot of districts will have cycles, and I'm new enough here yet, I don't know exactly what the cycles are. So they just went ahead last year, or for this fiscal year, and went ahead with Bridges, which was supposedly, really good. They've heard really good feedback on the implementation of that. And so the textbook budget was, just for this year, was what I found was 24,000. So that's just the hard textbooks themselves, and that's between like Fund 10 and Fund 27. So that's not just like that Bridges adoption, it's a lot of things. But Bridges will also, because there's an online component, have a lot of extra support professional development wise and for online subscription. So just the textbook piece is one piece of a larger whole, I guess is what I want to share. So and that, and that was just for one, the improvement instruction, just overall for that. And then under the improvement of, and so I looked at the improvement of instruction budget. So, and I can look too to double check that figure too, because that does, when I'm thinking about it, seems a little low. But then for professional services, it was like about $100,000, 101,194. So some of that is just your, there's so much professional development that goes on within the district, that we have teachers do, either as far as attending workshops. It could be administrators attending some workshops, that kind of stuff. And then, we pay teachers sometimes additional amounts if they attend during the summer when they're off contract.
Right, we just approved some of those.
Yeah, but then some of that is just, it's a part of their professional development days. Does that make sense? So sometimes there will be cost to bringing in a speaker to do that. So I guess, there's a lot that goes into those numbers, I guess is what I wanted to share. I don't know if that's, if that's all of the information. If I look here, and actually I have this, I can pull up the.
When we do professional development days and bring someone in,
Mhm.
don't we typically, like the way I'm understanding it so far, is that it almost just includes the SLLs, which is our student learning liaisons. / they used to be like department heads, right? That used to be what we have, and now it's SLLs.
Mm-hmm.
And not the greater teacher community is necessarily included in that. And I guess
I'm pretty sure that with the professional development days, it's geared towards all teachers that want to, they have like a guide this year that they're using to promote those activities. So, yeah, I would, you know, I can give you, and I just double checked the textbook amount, so that was the 24,000, that includes some, about 4,000 is for special ed. You know, I would encourage you, just because it's a little bit more outside of what I plan and what I do, to talk to Jason and Pam more about that, you know,
Yeah, it's hard.
I just wanna
because
tell
it's
you
kind of a
something that's not
budget thing.
correct.
Right, it's like a budget thing, but it also goes to curriculum at the same time. So like when we
Yes.
bring someone in for professional development, say they have a speaker. So far, I've not seen that we as a board approve of those, like with the subject matter, I guess, is some of what I'm personally concerned about.
Yeah.
So that's part of why I'm asking about textbooks and
Sure. So when you
Professional
see and you approve board financials, you know, I'll give it to you from the financial perspective. What I know and what I can tell you is that when you have professional development or professional services is what you'll call it, is like a 310 object. So, you know, all those, you know, professional services and buildings and grounds is another category too, but that's not with professional development, for example. So, you know, when you look at, you know, the financials that come out, you'll see like a 310, and those will be professional services. 411 is supplies, you know, so some of the like the object numbers, and I think as a part of that orientation meeting, that would be one of the most helpful things that I can share with you guys. So you can see like, what is that? Tara York has done an awesome job in like when you receive those vouchers, you kind of get the breakdown of the description, if that makes sense. Because it's the fund, the location, it's all sorts of different things. Like even though I approve purchases and she, you know, and help with that process, you know, when she runs the AP and everything that goes into those account numbers, you know, I rely on those descriptions too to say, oh, that was that. So,
and who does that?
well, when an initial requisition will come in from, you know, all the different buildings, I approve it. So it's entered, and then I double check it for coding, for all of the sort of requirements that it needs to meet. And then after I approve it, then it becomes a purchase order. And so then when we collect our receipts, we connect those along to the purchase order. So it's connect to the right account number.
Okay.
So, I do too have a concern, with some professional development things that I've seen in Manitowoc Public School District. And as far as some of those go, like as far, when the person, well, first off, who puts together who comes to you to get the payment for those professional development speakers?
What'll happen is the directors and their administrative assistants will put, you know, they'll have their plans for what they plan for their initiatives that are, you know, that they work on and organize. And then they will just put in you know, just the right codes and stuff. You know, I'll get some of the information, and I'm approving for more of the financial pieces of it, not the decision whether it happens or not, if that makes sense. I guess, you know, I'm not trying to, you know, that's my role in the process. So,
I get it.
It's
So,
hard
I mean-
though, because there's so much crossover between all the areas. You know, like, who do you go to for what? Where does it begin and where does it end? You know, because it does all intertwine.
Yeah, and I, you know, making progress on that website, I, you know, just did a little bit of work over the weekend, and I need to just download files, make links and all that kind of stuff. But, you know, I'm happy anytime to tell you guys figures, you know, but sometimes that's where it becomes a little challenging for me, where the decisions and the direction, you know, that's why, you know, we have directors in each area, because they're experts in that. So yeah, so I mean, never take that as that I'm not willing to help give information, and I can always definitely, if you're like, who should I talk to about this, I can, you know, probably defer you, and Mark for sure too. He just wasn't able to come today. So
one of the things too that I guess I was thinking while looking at this line item, and then also thinking about some of my concerns, and then also the discussion that we just have had. When I was on council, the city Manitowoc Council, we had a list of expenditures that were approved and, you know, denied at the general meeting. but I don't remember seeing any type of expenditures that are either approved or denied by the school board per se. Is there a reason that we've never gone down that route of approving expenditures and not approving expenditures?
Well, actually, every month at the meetings you do, because you have like, when you receive the board, that when I say like, I'm seeking approval for the, AP of this amount and then the payroll of this amount, that is the detail of the expenditures that have been approved by myself, and that have gone through the system. So they could have been approved, I mean, some of them even by Sean, like over the course of the year.
Sure.
They're the ones paid out at that time. The challenging thing with accounts payable is that the timing of when, like we have our meetings and when, when you guys receive the information, it's already happened in a sense, like the budget is approved, but it's one of those things where, at the time when you're approving and acknowledging almost, what that is. So, that's where,
Right, and that's the way it was then too.
Yeah.
Does that happen with the hiring of teachers currently?
I think, in a sense, that's the direction of how that's handled.
So we do hire teachers and then the board approves them?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they've already been hired and then so we don't really have any say in the hiring of that teacher, pretty much then.
No, really.
And when, like when
It's
I was
about
hired, for
processing,
example, you go through the process and, they'll often, it has to be approved by you guys if you would really object to someone being hired.
Yeah, because there are.
That it wouldn't go through. Does
Yeah.
that make sense? But so before I'm gonna share with my family in Facebook world, I waited till I was approved. I didn't
Right.
send out the Christmas cards,
But I
until
mean, take for example,
Yeah.
there's a certain position that they want to post and they have filled that position, and then it comes to the board and for seeking approval, and the board, decides that no, we don't want this position to occur. It kind of has a weird aspect, and it's almost like the board's then being held hostage to whatever.
The position would have already been taken up in a personnel committee.
That so it goes to personnel,
Yes.
and then they
Yes.
approach that person.
yes, for
Yes.
newly created positions.
Yes.
And that's the thing too. For a newly created, if you're gonna add positions, but if they're replacing, the view is like it's already a part of what.
Yes.
It's different, like the board has its role where, if there's a layoff, and that's, I'll let Mark speak to that, and Joyce, that's not my department. But that's where I hope I'm answering your question, where
You
if it's, if you, let's say, you as a board member, if it's an existing position, let's say there were 3 math teachers at Washington, 1 resigns, and they're making it 3 again, the board approves and acknowledges the hire as a standard for the staffing formula, set forth.
Right,
So,
it's just a replacement, so really,
yeah,
but if a new position is being brought forward,
Mhm.
it goes to the personnel committee for discussion. Then it comes to the general board. That's how it's always been since I've
Right,
been
so they
on.
don't even approach a person to fill that position until we approve that.
and even
That
posting
is-
it, even posting it too.
They don't.
Okay.
They do
Yeah,
not.
because there's a position that we get, but, okay, cool, thank you.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, so and it's definitely not that it's just, how can I say it, there is definitely the board's role in the approving of new positions and.
Yeah, 'cause otherwise that's why I was like, well, what's the point in even bringing the topic up? If we're not even gonna have any, if we're not just gonna do, formalities.
No,
It wasn't.
we have a
mine to-
process in place to do
Good,
that.
okay, cool.
And
Thank you.
what's challenging on the spending piece with bills and stuff is that, we have to pay things within 30 days, so that's where most districts take just, the approach of that. And every district's different, like in Valders, we, there was a board auditor that would hit approve, and then we just have totals. We wouldn't give any detail of all of the expenditures to the board. It's just a different style. Every district has its own style, so.
More information is always better though.
Yeah,
I mean,
Yes,
it's
I'm always in that
mind-boggling, right?
mindset.
To have so much, but yet at the same time, then the question marks aren't there yet. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it's about, I hate the word, but it's about transparency.
Well,
I shouldn't say I hate the word, I also like.
No,
the
I'm
word.
a big fan of that word.
But I mean, but I
Yeah.
mean, like, we just use it so much.
well, and I think too,
It's gonna be a
the,
different word.
how can I say it? You know, like I said, in Valdez, we would just have one person, you know, just eye them up and look, but they also, you know, the person would say, well, I really don't know what this is about, you know? But here, I mean, we give you guys extensive detail and information, so,
A
you
lot
know,
of details.
you know, Margot with just the account, you know, revenue expenditure balance sheet, and then Tara with AP, you know, it is really good detail, and definitely, I would encourage anyone, like, if you're ever looking at that in advance of a meeting and you're like, oh, I don't know what this is, you know, ask, you know. I can give even more detail if I know in advance, and I'll do the best I can on the spot and follow up with everyone.
Okay.
So, yeah, so I hope that helps along for them, so.
Thanks.
So,
All right, is there anything else that anyone has any questions about related to our agenda today?
According to the agenda, we're good.
Okay,
Good.
you're good? So I am looking for a motion to adjourn.
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
A second.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.
okay.
Gary's a personnel, right? Personnel committee.
Yes.
Do you know when they're meeting next?
They just had a meeting last week,
Yeah, I know.
and
I would think they'll be meeting a couple times though, because they want to get that, the evaluation thing going.
yes, they do,
So I think their plan is to get together a couple times.
yes.
Okay.
But right now, their main